Hey everybody, it's Romania Black. We're on episode 7 of RWBY, and I can't believe that we're halfway through the season at this point. It's crazy, right? But we are taking a break after this episode, so I know the only thing I know on Twitter about this episode is that Eddie Rivas said that this wasn't intentionally where they wanted to stop halfway, but it works as a stopping point. And I'm like, oh gosh. So are we going to leave off with it being really grim, pun intended, and it being like at a low point? Or what are we doing? Like, how are we ending this mid-season here, cliffhanger, whatever have you, and stopping the season for a couple months before we come back? So I'm pretty excited to see what they do with that. I do have another show that I'm going to pick up while Ruby's on break to play on Saturdays, and so you guys will start to see that next week on here. But man, it's going to be interesting, right? So I don't know. I'm real curious how we end this. Last episode was we finally got Cinder backstory. Finally, her character motivation makes so much more sense. Her attitude towards Emerald, towards Salem, everything leading up to her character kind of makes more sense based on that backstory. So that's great. The Aesops are with Jean, Rin, and Yang, which is an interesting dynamic because Yang's technically the only one that's really interacted with them from last season. And yeah, meanwhile, everyone else is at Atlas where all hell's breaking loose. So why not? So this episode's called War. Which, yep, that's what we're doing. I'm real curious. Oscar and Ozma are scheming to do some sabotage maybe in the whale, which could be cool. I'm wondering if that's going to be related to, are all the Grimm circulating from the whale? So if they can sabotage the whale, will that at least stop the Grimm from coming out and multiplying even more? I don't know, but yeah, everyone has converged to Atlas with the exception of our Aesop's Rin team. And with the exception of Crow and Robin, well, they're on Atlas. And Ozma and Ozpin stuck with Oscar and Salem and her troops on the whale. Basically, everybody's at Atlas except Aesop's. And we don't know where Penny is. Penny's MIA. So, interesting. But I'm going to quit rambling, guys. And we are going to start episode 7 of RWBY, volume 8. And we're going to start that here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, let's go. Okay. Oh. Okay. So that's a pretty good place to leave off for our season mid-season finale here. That's so much to think about. Because we've got a lot of stuff to set up here. Right off the bat, things standing out. Rin getting the vibe check semblance upgrade. So being able to sense people's emotions, not only masking emotions, but sensing them as well, is interesting. So I find it really interesting that and convenient that he's developed these new abilities right before we're about to go into literally the lion's den. I'm wondering if he can do this vibe check thing on Salem, because that would be interesting. That would be cool. And I'm wondering if they encounter Hazel and Emerald, if he can do the same thing that he's just done with the Aesops to kind of mask what their actual emotions are in the scenario. That would be really interesting. If he can use that on Emerald and Hazel, that would be very cool. Jean, just basically they're going to dungeon crawl this whale to find Oscar before the bomb goes off. I'm assuming Ironwood's going to be ticked, and I'm wondering if Harriet is going to screw this up and be like, let's just detonate the bomb now while they're still in the whale. I don't know. Salem having her little... I mentioned Hunter x Hunter because my brother and I are watching Hunter x Hunter, and I've never seen Hunter x Hunter before until now, and my brother loves it. But the moment with Crollo where he does the orchestration of the Phantom Troop, that was it was a nice homage, I'm assuming, to that moment. Salem's just having the time of her life, scattering all these Grimm about. She's just having a wingding of a time. And then Oscar. I like that Ozma trusts him. And he's like, okay, here's what we're going to do. we're going to give Hazel the information that he wants. But Hazel now knows the rest of the story. He now knows. I find it super fascinating that Hazel tried to kill Salem. And she let him do whatever he wanted, and it didn't work. And that's when he's like, oh, crap, I can't kill you. Like, she physically let him see for himself that she can't be killed. It's interesting now that Oscar and Ozma's told Hazel everything about her plan. Like, she just wants to, she just wants to die. She's like, I'm done with this world. I just want to move on. So if it means us getting wiped out of reality, go for it. Yep. So Hazel knowing that now, the question is, Emerald knows it as well. I'm getting, if we're going fairy tale routes, the Aladdin vibes, because Emerald's always had kind of that Aladdin vibe. It makes so much sense now. The genie in the lamp and Aladdin. My wonder is, what would Emerald even ask? What would Emerald ask? Jin, what would she ask her? I don't know. If something was Cinder, and it'd be a pointless question that could be answered. But I like that Oscar gives Hazel the information that he wants, and he's like, you find out the truth. If you don't believe me, you go ask. So now Mercury, or not Mercury, Mercury, he knows as well. I was about to get him and Neptune confused. Mercury knows as well. So I don't think Mercury's going to tell Tyrion, because Tyrion would just go back and tell Salem. I don't think Hazel and Emerald are going to tell Salem. So who's going to ask the question? And what is the question going to be? Because Salem wants to know where the beacon relic is and how to get to it. So I'm assuming that's her question. Her question is going to be, how do I get to the beacon relic? Because she can figure out everything else, but the beacon relic's the one thing she can't find. So I'm assuming that would be her question. So what would Hazel ask? What would Emerald ask? What would Mercury ask? Everybody else has questions, and there's only one left. Who's going to be the one that asks the question? That is this information being on the table, but Salem not being privy to it, is really intriguing. And I'm so curious to know how we're going to resolve this plot point. But yeah, Hazel seems more and more like him or Emerald are going to be the one, or both are going to be the one to turn tail from Salem. So I don't know where Neo is at this point. Neo can't ask the question. or can she? I don't think she can. So I don't know if Neo went with Cinder or if she's hanging around the whale. That would be interesting if she did stick around. If Rin used his vibe check powers on Neo, that could be cool. Say you're just mad because Torchwick's gone, and you're blaming everybody for it. But yeah, I love that Tyrion is basically like, no, she wants to destroy the world. Isn't it great? Like, Tyrion's just nuts enough, like, he does not care. I don't know why. Yeah, that's weird. I was just talking about Tyrion and the episode jumped back to where he was. Possessed, y'all. My computer's possessed. But yeah. Yeah, Tyrion's like, duh. She wants to end the world. Isn't it great? And they're all like, oh, yeah, So this is setting up a lot of things. Tyrion and Mercury going to Vacuo. Poor Mercury. I never thought I'd say poor Mercury, but he's going to be stuck in that plane with Tyrion for a long time, at least several hours, and having to listen to this chaotic man ramble about whatever before he's going to be glad to get to the middle of the desert. And I'm curious to know if Sun and Neptune meet up with these guys, how that's going to go. Who knows? I find it curious if they're going to track down the headmaster there. And what's going to happen with all of that. And then Team RWBY and Klein showing back up. I love that Klein shows back up, and then it's Whitley that calls him. And I love that she's like, the fact that you did it for someone else is... Because at the end of the day, their mother told Weiss, she's like, your brother needs someone to care for him too. And that's like, oh, Whitley, you're not total snot. You've got some usefulness. So I'm glad that they have a doctor there to tend to Nora. And May, I agree with RWBY that there really aren't sides in this. It's just everybody needs help, and we've got to figure out what's the best way we can help everybody. Because Blake was about to point out, she's like, you can't be absolutes on this, because that's what the Aesops were doing. Don't you be doing the same thing. So I really hope somebody breaks Crow and Robin out. I hope that Team RWBY and Nora can figure out what they're doing. Are they going to split that team even further? Penny's now in the mix too, but they don't know Penny's been hacked. So there's that. They're not near the academy, I'm assuming, so there's that at least. Ironwood looks like he's about to snap 1,000-fold. Like he is under pressure. Like that whole just causing a panic, telling the whole city to evacuate to the subways. It's like, what are you doing, bud? You're trying not to cause a panic because that's going to attract the Grimm even more. Ironwood just bad decision after bad decision. He is not good under pressure in any circumstance. And then the Aesops, obviously, and yeah, like Rin said, I predicted Marrow's going to be the one to jump ship first, and it's just a matter of when. There's so much set up with this episode that is interesting, and all the parts and pieces are moving on the board. Everybody is back at Atlas now, except for the Happy Huntresses that are down in Mantle. Everybody's up at Atlas. So I am curious to know if part of Team RWBY will go with May back to Mantle, and I'm assuming Weiss is going to stay in Atlas. I'm wondering if maybe they take Nora down to Mantle because they don't want Nora around all the Grimm here. If maybe Nora goes with May if she gets healed up, or if Blake goes with May, or what we end up doing. I'm really curious, but man. And I love Rin's point about no teammate is irreplaceable. No teammate is replaceable. And he's talking about Pyrrha there. But he's also talking about Nora and him being afraid of losing her too. But I find it interesting that Harriet's like, okay, well, Marrow's clearly the youngest and newest on the team because he replaced like Tortuga or somebody that she said died, so he replaced him. And Winter replaced someone else that gets cut off. So I'm curious to know, who did Winter replace? It's interesting. But yeah. Or maybe that's just a red herring, and it's just to make a point that these people have replaced others. So, curious. That's a pretty good place to end off, to leave us speculating going back in February. I'm pretty excited to see what they do, especially this whole thing with Jin. That whole bit, I'm like, oh, what are we going to do with this now? There's so many different ways they can go, and I'm very curious to know what they end up deciding. So I hope you all like this reaction. I thought it was a pretty good episode. A nice way to cut off before going back. So please let me know what y'all think down below. And then, yeah, we're going to take a break from RWBY. I've got another show that I'm going to start reacting to on Saturdays. And then we'll come back in February and just finish up the volume. So I'll see you all then. But in the meantime, I hope you all stay safe. Have a wonderful week. And we'll be back soon with more RWBY. Bye.